third episode of the Hinge podcast. This is the Young, Christian, and Married episode. My name is Demi. To my left, I'm going to let them start to introduce themselves. I'm going to let everybody get a chance to introduce themselves, starting with you at the end.
Hi everyone, my name is Hafsa.
Hey, what's up, everybody? My name is Tifa.
Hello, I'm Christine.
Hi guys, my name is Dayball.
Hi everyone, I'm Coco.
All right, now that we got all the formalities and stuff out the way, I'm going to throw the first question out. When did you guys first meet? Let's hear that story about, that first time that you met or when things changed. Whoever wants to go first. Go ahead, Coco. I know you're ready.
So I met Dabo in church. We both met when he was still in choir, but he really hated choir, so he quit. And so I don't really know when things changed, to be honest. We just started spending time together, and we just developed a friendship. And then after like 6 months of just like just dating, I didn't realize it was dating, but it was. And then we both just had the conversation like, yeah, we're not wasting any time. We're not playing any games. So we got serious. And here we are today.
Sounds true.
Sounds true. All right. You wanna answer for us?
So how did we meet? We met through Instagram, technically. Demi was low key stalking me. And it was the summer of 2012. We had a conversation about tomatoes. Long story short, I still have never received my tomatoes from this garden. But then we met in person on campus, and not gonna lie, I was really excited about him, so we took off from there.
Sounds true.
Oh, okay. Let's see. So we met in college. We were in the International Students Association. I'm sure I've seen her a couple times before, but she was really conservative and withdrawn. But then we had an event where she worked on my team, and then I think I noticed like how bubbly her personality is, how funny she was, you know what I mean? And that was when I was like, yeah, I'm finna make my move. So once our cooperation together on that team was over, I asked her out on a date, and we went from there.
Sounds true.
All right. So follow-up question. So, let's talk about the logistics of how we came to be here. So let me ask you guys this. When would you say, or how did you know that the person sitting next to you was the one? When, how, was there a sign? Did did somebody say something? Because I know for me, like very early in our relationship, very early in me meeting Christine, right? My mom's big, big in the church, big, grew up, big CAC vibes, she getting prophecies left and right. And one of those messages that she got was that, the person sitting to my right was my guardian angel. From that moment, I was like, all right, okay, heard you. And, 8 years later, here we are. So how about you guys?
For me, I would say that I knew Tifa was the one because he was just always making me laugh, and he was like really funny, and he would always tell jokes. Like, Tifa's always telling jokes, but I was like, oh, he's really funny, like, and like cute laugh. Right? It's not the cute laugh. It's like a ha ha laugh. So, yeah, he's just funny. He was funny. That's when I knew, and he was like always caring and always made it a point to like reach out to me and always try to hang out, like even in college and stuff, and like that meant a lot to me. So, yeah.
I would say we've been dating for a while, and I think we were just casually dating. Didn't really have anything sorted for the future. I think there was even a point, like maybe like the first 3 years we were dating while we were in college, I had planned to move to Nigeria after I graduated. So I don't think, well, because we're focusing on school and other things, we never really concentrated on the future between us. But once it was clear that I wasn't moving and I was going to be around, that's when I actually had to think about our future. And actually think deliberately on how to make it work and not just dating casually, but dating with a purpose. From that point, it just kind of went from there. I think once I got serious with our dating, and I date for marriage, not for fun. So, yeah.
Bars.
Bars.
What about y'all?
I think for us, it's a few things. I mean, the number one thing was praying about it, and besides that, when we started talking, started sharing goals, even though the goals were not the same thing, you guys can actually plan things out. You have separate goals, but you can still work together. And I think that was one of the main reasons where at that point I was like, okay, she has a plan, but it's not impeding in my plan, and we can still work together. So yeah.
Yeah, so I think for me it was a few things, because when we started dating, I was still in college, and he had just finished his master's, I think. So I was still going through trying to finish school, and you know how that is. Like, you're already thinking, like, what kind of job am I gonna get after school? So my mind was already racing, and I think at one point I ended up going to go study abroad too. So, through that period, he didn't try and put me in any boxes or tell me that, oh, no, I want you to stay here because I don't want to be away from you. He really encouraged me to chase after everything I wanted to do. I love to travel, and I'm a creative by nature. So for me, I can be a lot more abstract. But Dabo's very straightforward and clear cut. And I think for me, him not limiting or wanting to limit anything I wanted to do, no matter how crazy, I could say something crazy right now, like I want to move to Australia, and he'll be like, can I work from there? That's it. And for me, being with somebody who understands my need for freedom like that and respects it. And then on top of that, I think the day that you asked me, he asked me about, it was one day we were just driving, he asked me what my genotype was. And I didn't know, nobody had ever asked me that in my life. I didn't know my blood type, I didn't know my genotype, I didn't know what type of whatever he was asking me. I was just like, I don't know what that is. I had to go literally to the doctor and go do a blood test because I didn't know.
Checking for that sickle cell trait.
Yeah, so for me, that told me that he has a plan, he has a vision, like he's already thinking 3 steps ahead. So I'm just trying to figure out school and a job, but he's trying to figure out, okay, is this someone I can build a family with safely? And even if I had like a different or like a not so positive result, I don't think that would have stopped him. I think he would have really just been like, okay, what's our next step? And yeah, so I think for me, that was definitely the game changer, being with somebody who encouraged me and always found ways to be there for me, even if it wasn't ideal for where we were in our relationship. So, yeah.
I would say I knew because immediately I wanted to be intentional about the way that we were dating. I'll say, I never really called it this before, but for lack of better terms, I'm going to say it was quad talks. So whenever I was like noticing that I was starting to get more serious about Demi, I would literally just be like, okay, let's meet up in front of Jenkins in the quad and let's just talk. Like, that was our thing. It would be like, okay, I'm starting to realize, like, I really like you. Okay, so what are we gonna do about this? Well, let's make this a little more serious. Okay, well, I made it a point to make sure that we were always on the same page, and just being intentional because of my previous relationship where it was aloof. So yeah, I think that's when I realized I can't say, much like Tifa, I can't say that I was like, oh, this is the guy I'm going to marry, because we were in college. I wasn't thinking about marriage, but I knew that I wanted him to be in my life for forever. And so, yeah.
Aww.
You are right.
No, but thank you for that answer, because you actually made my job a little easier. Nice little segue into this next question, right? So you spoke about a previous relationship. Now, I want to open the question to the rest of you, since she spoke about, what we may term as baggage from previous relationships. Did any of you have any baggage from previous relationships, or, situations that you realized you needed to work through, get over before you took this next step to where we are today?
Not me.
Lucky.
Thanks.
Must be
That was
nice.
really fast. Anyway, I had a little baggage, but like not serious baggage. Just like my I don't really call my last relationship a relationship. I just call it like a quarter life crisis. And I wasn't even at my quarter life. I'm at my quarter life right now. So I don't know. I was not dating intentionally. I remember getting into it and thinking to myself that, this isn't going anywhere. And like, have y'all ever seen that meme where the dog is just like sitting in fire and it's just like, I'm okay.
This is fine.
It's just like, that's literally like, and I think I was also with that person because where they were in their life, or like I was just surrounded by people that were not excelling. So it kind of gave me like a sense of like, oh, I'm really doing it. Like, even though I was probably operating at like 65% capacity, but my 65% capacity compared to some of these people was like 1,000. So I was just like, living my best life. And it just, yeah, so I think that was my baggage there, because now I didn't realize at the time, but I met my equal. And I wasn't ready for meeting my equal at that time because I was just like, he really like, it wasn't intimidating, but like he held me to the fire and was just like, yeah, you can do better and you can be better than that. And I'm just like, yeah, I know, but like I don't want to. But so we thank God for growth. But that was like my only type of, baggage. So yeah.
That's what's up. I don't know that I had I don't know that I had problems carried over from previous relationships. I think it was more so personal baggage. Hobbs and I dating for 7 years, so we met pretty young while in college. And even though I did get our relationship, I think maybe a year before we started dating, personally for me, I never kind of took time to, it's a bit cliche, but get to know myself. I hadn't come into myself yet, hadn't really come to terms with who I was, what I wanted, and how I was gonna go about it. And like I said, when we started off the relationship, it was very casual. So of course, we were monogamous, but we weren't rooted in marriage or the growth of one another. It was just kind of like, I like you, you like me, we like the vibes, let's vibe together. So, yeah, just vibes, just vibes.
No direction.
No growth, just vibes. But nah, the growth definitely came around after a while, because getting in that situation where personally I hadn't found myself, and getting into a relationship where we were vibing like that, the vibes only last for so long. And once the vibes run out, then it's like, if you're gonna do the work to maintain the relationship, you have to work on yourself first. So I'm really thankful that we were able to survive through finding ourselves, because I can think of 1,001 ways that this relationship wouldn't have made it through all of that. But that's how I know it was God, because if not for God, see, there y'all go.
So I would say that I don't know if I want to call it baggage, but there were some things from my previous relationship where I was just like, ugh. So I had like a wall up when I first met Tifa, and I didn't want to talk. I didn't want to do nothing. Like, don't talk to me, don't, whatever. Like, I was literally just guarded. And I feel like, he really helped me bring that wall down. Like, he really let me trust him and kind of just helped me, like, So, I mean, it was just, yeah, it was baggage. But I mean, he really was just always like upfront with me. It was just like, look, we need to figure this out. We need to figure it out. And he was just always like, if you know Tifa, he's a very honest person, so he's not going to sugarcoat anything. He told me from the jump, this is what we need to work on, because you can't live like this. And it was just like, not because of even our relationship, like it was starting to affect me like on a personal level, like stunting my growth like as an individual, which is just never good. So, yeah.
I can definitely understand that. I mean, personally for me, I know I had some personal baggage that, looking back, because of course hindsight's 2020. Looking back, it stemmed from the family dynamic that I grew up in. I grew up in a single family household with my mother and my younger brother, and that, in a sense, I led to a fear of commitment. It led to a fear of like, oh, is this for me? Like, being with one person for the rest of my life, is that for me? So I want to talk a little bit more about the family dynamic, starting with the fact that most, if not all of us here are, we're going to be the first ones to get married here in America. Our parents are, we're first generation in a sense, right? So is there anything, or, what are some of the things that you guys have talked about that you want to bring into your relationship that you've picked up from maybe seeing, previous relationships, or, the culture that you grew up in? Or are there things that you realize that, yeah, we not perpetuating this going forward? Because I know, for example, like the respectability politics, that's something that's, you know, that of Nigerian culture, that's something that's like we sifting through that right now to figure out what's going to carry over into our family structure and what's not. Because let's be real, you know, a lot of the problem that, you know, a lot of some of the problems that we see in Nigerian culture can be rooted in that respectability politics. So I wonder for you guys, like, what are some of those things that you think may be coming over or not coming over?
I can touch on this first. I think my answer is going to sound like the college essay of a first-generation immigrant child, but trying to merge both cultures, I had to make it very clear that, you know, while I was born in Nigeria and raised in Nigeria, I spent just as much time here in America, if not more, than I have in Nigeria. So I'm not Nigerian and I'm not American. I'm Nigerian American. And speaking to the generation that came before me, like my parents or my uncles and aunties, you know, there's a push against Western behavior or American behavior, like you're not American. And, you know, I push back against that because, look, we didn't immigrate to America for nothing. So clearly there was good here. So clearly I took in good as well. So implementing some of those things are really big. I think implementing them now is a lot easier because I immigrated so long ago, over 20 years ago. Even my parents, who they were 20 years ago, is not who they are now. And I have a baby sister, and the way they raised her is not how they raised my brother and I. And it's a bit frustrating because we didn't get that growth. But it's good to know that people can change. And knowing in that is that I don't have to perpetuate things that I felt that they did wrong. The biggest thing for me isn't necessarily, like Demi said, it's not the necessarily respectability politics, but the respectability complex. I felt my biggest issue as far as family-wise was that I felt a lot stemmed around this idea of what respect was. You can't say this to me. You can't talk to me like this. You can't challenge me. You can't be this. And I feel personally, at least for me and my parents, there was a lot that was stunted because of that. You know, your parents do something wrong. You can't tell them they did something wrong because that's disrespectful. But then when you repeat the behavior that your parents did, they'd be like, where did you get this behavior from?
Where did you learn that?
You know, and for me, even though I knew things that I was getting passed on from my parents are wrong, now that I've formed it as a habit, it's tough to break. You know, so I don't want to trap my family or trap my children, you know, in my bad habits. I want them to be able to grow. So I want my kids to be able to call me out. I need them to be able to check me. It might be embarrassing because they're my kids, but hopefully I can utilize that embarrassment to channel change. And I want that to be an atmosphere where it doesn't just apply for my kids, but apply for my wife as well. So that if my wife calls me out, I know that it's not in violence, it's not in anger, but it's out of growth, it's out of love. That will continue to keep us moving so that me, myself, I'll be better than my father, and my kids will be better than me. And it can keep going that way.
So I'll say that because my dad is Ghanaian and my mom is black. So I grew up with my mother. So I grew up black American, and so I come with a very different background in the sense that, like, typical conversations that Demi was not having with his mother or even his father, my mom started having with me at a young age. Or even simple things like being able to have my guy friends from the neighborhood come over, and me, my brothers, and all of us would have sleepovers. Like, when I have that conversation with some of my other friends, especially like African friends, they're like, what are you talking about? Like, you had a boy in your house, in your room, and he stayed. And it's like, yeah, that was fine for us. And we never even thought to, like, cross boundaries or anything like that. And so that's something that I definitely want to take from my background and my culture. And then I also do appreciate the level of, like, community and village that Demi's family shows. My father is not really connected with his family, although he's one of 12. He literally, I think he talks to like three of his siblings. And so that idea of, like, village and community is something that I definitely want to take on. Now, to Demi's point about the respectability politics, or even, like Tife said, complex, that is something that I definitely want to challenge. I don't believe that, like, children need to call everyone auntie and uncle. Like, I'm sorry, but that one really just bothers me. Like, that's not your auntie, that's not your uncle. If she did not help me, if he did not help me, if he did not help Demi or us, I'm sorry, like Mr. and Miss is just as respectable. And so that's something that we will definitely be, showing our kids. Of course, people like Tife and Hopsa, those are one of our closest groups of friends. That's auntie and uncle, and it's because they've been there with us, for us, and I know that they will be there for our children as well. So things like that are very important to me.
We good? Y'all.
So I think for me it's a little bit different. My dad passed away when I was very young, so my mom was the dad, and for the most part of my younger days, I grew up by myself. So I think that for the first 15 to 20 years, I did not really have any kind of emotional connection with anybody. Just no friends. No, I mean, I had friends, but it wasn't the same because I was by myself for the most part. Went to school in a different state, boarding house. Went to school in Tennessee, just me, just white people, nobody else. I mean, it was just different. So I think growing up, I don't think that I want my kids to grow up like that. It I think it still made me a better person, but that's only because I learned how to navigate all those kind of issues. But I think that growing up, now that I've seen how the past was, I want my kids to be able to have a little bit of connection and relationship with their parents. So that's my take.
Debo grew up in Nigeria, and I grew up here, like literally Baltimore, like born and raised. Lived in Maryland forever. Never lived in another country or another state, and I feel like complete opposite. Like he has a lot of siblings, but they're older than him, so they were like, where were they? I don't even know where they were, but they were just not around when he was growing up, and he ended up, like he said, boarding. I don't know what exactly a boarding house is, but it's just, it's not a home. Doesn't sound like. Is locked up in the village somewhere.
She can't relate.
And I can't relate. I have 3 siblings and 4 kids. Like growing up with 4 kids in the house, we were always surrounded. You always have a friend, or you always have an enemy, or whatever you want to have. You have. Also, I'm very close with my aunts, with my actual aunts, not like fake aunts and stuff like that. Aunts and uncles, yeah, very very close with them, and I think that I've definitely seen a change in Debo, because when I met him, he was just on his own, hunky dory. I didn't even know he had a brother that lived around the corner. I didn't know, but now, like just last night, we were at his brother's house. We spend time with his brother and his family. I bring him to my house. He spends time with my family. We go to the UK. We go spend time with my family. Go see his brothers that he hasn't seen, and like they were literally almost in tears when they saw him when we went to the UK, because his brothers hadn't seen him in like. They were like, "Is this Debo? Is this Debo?" I'm like, I mean, yes. I'm just like, who are these people? Like, they hadn't seen him in forever, and just kind of really trying to hone in on that whole family aspect. I've definitely seen the change, because he used to be like solo dolo, and I'm very like, I can be solo too, but I love having family around. So he's grown.
Y'all said something, and I appreciate each and every one of y'all answers, but we all mentioned, how we want to raise our children in each of our answers to that previous question. So, piggybacking off of that, in this day and age, I know for myself personally, like, raising kids is something that I'm just like, how? You know what I mean? Like, I feel like, we grew up, most of us we're around the same age. We're like the last of the generation that grew up outside. You know what I mean? These kids grow up on the internet. They grew up on YouTube, and our kids more than likely will. You know what I mean? So, is there anything that worries you, or anything that you guys have talked about in navigating how you're going to raise children? Like another example, with me and Christine is like, she doesn't want us to send our kids back to Nigeria. I want my kids to have that experience because I did, and I realized the benefit of it. So it's something that's, we still talking about, but, is, is there, what have those conversations, what do those conversations look like for you guys? The kid conversation, the children conversation.
I think for this one, I think you kind of learn as you go. You can say all these things now. You can plan it, but when the kids come, it's just gonna be a 180. But for the most part, I don't think I have anything against sending kids back to Nigeria, but it won't be my first go-to. They can visit maybe, but I don't think it's. Yeah, personally, I might sound biased, but I don't think there's anything back there for them. They can learn whatever. They can visit for a few weeks, but they're not really gonna go back and stay back there because everybody's here. What are they going back for?
Like
So-
sending kids to Nigeria,
I
it's
know,
like,
right?
it has a negative connotation for me a little bit, cause like I remember growing up, especially in Jesus' house, our friends, like they got sent to Nigeria. It was like punishment. Like I never went to school in Nigeria. I have no problem with my kids. I want my kids to experience the world. I want to send them to Greenland or send them somewhere that they can experience the world. There's more to the world than just Nigeria. And like, Nigeria has a long way to go, and like, we're praying for Nigeria constantly, but sending my kids to Nigeria is a punishment, cuz I send you somewhere that I don't even go. The only time I've been to Nigeria, like I stayed in a hotel. I didn't even go out like that. So I stayed in the very bougie part. I was on Victoria Island, and Boko Haram was like rampant at that time. So even going to Surulere, I think they reported me to pastor that I went to Surulere. I said, it's all right.
Let's
It's all
actually navigate away from the Nigeria conversation
right. Oh, sorry.
and stick more on
Send
the
your kids to Greenland,
raising your kids, because
Iceland,
like for example, all
Finland.
right, let's do it this way: the internet, right? Children and the internet. I'll pose the question that way because I know the internet is going to play a big part in how we raise our kids. Like I remember I was talking to somebody, I think yesterday, and like kids grew up on like if you give a kid a tablet, you keep them quiet for hours on end. You know what I mean? So like instead of for us, our parents would send us outside, go play. Like that's how they kept the house quiet, that kind of thing. So let's stick there as opposed to sending kids to Nigeria and corporal punishment.
I'll say that, once again, a bit cliche of an answer, but every generation who is in the position where they're going to have children or raise children, look at their children and are fearful because every generation has technology that they felt changed the landscape of how you raise children. Today, we say the expansion of the internet in the early 2000s when we were younger, while we were still playing outside, it was the internet period, even though it was dial-up. Before them, in the 80s, there was music, the expansion of CDs. Before that, it was television, and before that, it was the radio. People thought you were going to go to hell if you listened to radio. And look at us now. So we're doing a podcast in church. So the technology really isn't something I'm scared of. A lot of great things come out of this. You know what I mean? The other day, there was a story talking about how there was this whole investment frenzy going on because people can invest easier now because the app's on their phone. And there was a 10-year-old boy who became a thousandaire multiple times over because he had GameStop stock. He buys video games, so he bought the stock. And you think it's crazy. What's a 10-year-old doing investing in stocks? He should be outside kicking the ball. Well, guess what? The kid got the money. They asked him what he wants to do with it. He says nothing. He took the money, donated it, and I think he donated to the children's hospital, bought a bunch of toys. Yeah, come on, man. Like, there's good in kids. You know what I mean? The internet is not objectively evil. You know what I mean? It's how you raise your kids. So for me, my goal is to make sure I'm just giving my kids the right tools and keys to navigate society, period. Whatever they do with it is left to them. You can't really control that. You're hopeful as a parent, but you don't really want to put your stock in it because you're going to end up disappointed at the end of the day. Your kids can do good, and we could be out of touch. You know what I mean? I know parents who were giving their kids a lot of slack because you're on social media all the time. Well, guess what? There are people getting paid millions for being on social media now. I bet those parents have some regret. So look, I'm not gonna understand what the internet is gonna be like in 20 years. When I have my kids or when they're going through all of this. That's not my job. My job is just to make sure that I give them the right keys. Morally, I teach them right things. Culturally, I teach them right things, and I lead them on the path of God. And hopefully, they stay on that path. And things go well from there.
Yeah, he said everything, but I think just one thing that I also want to piggyback off of is just that I think for me, it's like, I'm not going to ever say to my kids, like, you can't watch TV, or be on the internet. I think it's all about moderation. Like, please read your books. Read your books too. Like, it's not just internet out, TV. Like, you have to, let's have some balance here, because that's important. And I feel like growing up in my household, you know, my parents would always be like, no TV after 6, but wouldn't give us an alternative. Like, oh yeah, like go read a book, as opposed to, they would say, but go read a book. At that point, it's like, it's a punishment to read a book. Like, you know, so I really want my kids to feel like putting learning and, like, you know, watching TV and being on the internet is like the same level, not like reading is a punishment or doing your homework is a punishment, like, oh, yelling at my kid while they're doing their homework or something like that. Like, no, yeah, everything is just in moderation. Like, I like Debo said, we can't sit here and say like, oh, we're gonna line out everything we want for our kids. Things will change, but in moderation, that's just the only thing I think. So, yeah.
I want to add and say that I used to say all the time that, like, my kids, when we go out to dinner, we're not going to have them on tablets and we're not going to have AirPods in. I babysat my nephew and niece for 2 days, y'all. 2 days. It was only 2 days. They're 8 and 12. The amount of words that they can fit into a sentence in the span of 1 minute was just like, please, put on your phone, like, just leave me alone. Like, I was just like, wow, like, this is what my brother is experiencing. Okay, I get it now. Yeah, sometimes dinner, we might be on the iPads. I'm not gonna lie. Like, we might just be on the iPads because the amount of engagement that these kids need is way further than what we ever used to need. You know, we were fighting to stay outside in the dark. You know what I mean? Like, now it's like, that was enough for us. We'd come in, we eat our dinner, we get in the shower, we go to sleep. These kids, my niece calls me at 1 and 2 o'clock in the morning because her mind is just still going. She's just like looking for the next thing. So I do think that I will say that there is a benefit because sometimes you just need that moment. And then I do think that, like, I want to definitely keep them engaged. So, like, I love doing DIY projects. There's a lot of young mothers now who are doing, like, cooking with their kids. And I'm like, oh my God, that kid is only like 2 or 3, but they're literally pouring milk into brownie mix and making cupcakes and things. And for one, it's just the cutest thing in the world, but also, like, they're still learning. Like Hopsa said, they're learning, you're engaging them, you're spending quality time with them. You may in turn even be speaking to their love languages. So I think that I'm not gonna be too distracted by, like, you know, oh, no TV, no this, no that, but the alternative definitely needs to be something that's beneficial.
Sorry, real quick. Playing to their strengths, because a lot of times people don't even know what their kids like because you put an iPad or a phone or whatever, if they put them in front of the TV, you don't even get to see that, oh, Jimmy likes to swim, or like, oh, so-and-so. Like, my mom put my sister and I in ballet. I'm flat-footed, and I was chubby, so ballet was not it for me, but I could float. I love to swim. So, like, it's different for everybody. I love music. One sister loves, like, my brother liked skateboarding at one time. My other sisters were into whatever they're into. I remember we called love to step, and I don't know why our parents thought step was really ghetto, but like, when you invest in your kids and put them in places that they actually want to be, they're too tired afterwards to even pick up a phone or to pick up an iPad. They literally just come home. If they even eat, they eat and then they sleep. Like, so playing, like, but that takes engagement. Like Christine said, it takes engagement. You have to have that FaceTime with your kids, and yeah, they talk a lot, and yeah, all of that other stuff. But if you find out their interests, kids literally communicate those things. They do if you listen and take the time and be patient. So really, you could save yourself thousands on electronics. Just drop them off at the park.
That is definitely one thing that I will say. These kids definitely be communicating, man. Because I know Christine was same niece and nephew that they were babysitting. I know I came home one day, and yo, Chase was giving me 1,000 about my Fortnite play, bro. And like, he was like, bro, what is going on here? Like, and this is somebody that streams Fortnite daily, so like he was looking at me sideways, like, bro, get your bars up, bro. Like, so, and you know, it's cool though, because you know that means that, like, him engaging with me meant a lot to me, because you know, when you're coming into a situation like that, you know, I barely know this kid, I barely know him, I barely know his family. Like, they've lived on the West Coast for a good amount of time and then moved over here. So I had to take the time to, you know, incorporate myself into what they had going on and vice versa. And that brings me to my next question. For you, how has it been incorporating the two families together? I know you guys are both couples, to my left and my right. You guys are engaged, right? So I know the wedding planning process between two families. I know what that looks like, right? From my perspective. Thank goodness her parents aren't Nigerian, but I know what that's looked like. So from the wedding planning from the wedding planning perspective, excuse me, and even before that, how has it been, bringing the two families together?
I'll start. I think that, not I think, because we started dating in college, it was very easy to just bring him home. My mom has always, and I think that honestly, like growing up Black American, like again, that level of freedom that I was able to experience afforded certain things just being easier. So it wasn't even a big thing. It was like, hey, mom, I'm dating this guy. She's like, oh, bring him by. Like, it wasn't like, oh, let me sit him down and grill him. It was more so, and I learned this after Demi and I got more serious, that her point was, if I tell a guy that I'm interested in that I want them to meet my mom and he shows any level of apprehension, he's not serious. And so Demi was like, oh, like, okay, like, all right, I'll come. And it was nothing. So that immediately spoke to the level of seriousness to me and for her as well. So immediately I was able to just bring him into the fold. Certain times I would come home for the weekend. He would come with me, driving me there. Or especially like to help me bring back food or just different ways. And then immediately, I think it was our second year dating. He even came to North Carolina with me to meet my grandma and the rest of my family down there for Thanksgiving.
Boy, let me tell you, Thanksgiving with a Black family.
He says that that's the reason why he married me too, honestly. It wasn't really for me, it was for my family's cooking.
It's true. It's true.
But so it's been very easy to just bring him in the fold. I have two brothers, one that's closer in age to me, and they have a good relationship. So it's been very easy. I think that the one part that was a little tougher is that my father and I's relationship had fallen off at a point in time, and so Demi and I had already been dating, and then he met him after the fact, and so that was a little tough because just not even my dad meeting him, but more so like, okay, this is my dad. Like, we are repairing our relationship. Not only are we repairing our relationship, but I'm also growing into a woman and now dating a man that I want him to also have a relationship with. So that part for me was a little bit tough to navigate. But I will say that everything else pretty much has just been pretty easy. Demi's very easygoing, so it was very easy to bring him in the fold.
For us, it was, I think it might be a little bit different and yet similar. For the most part, her dad and I were already friends before we even started talking. So we were close. We're buddies. so so that kind of made things a little bit easier. So we found out later on that we were dating after he and I were friends, and I mean, we would just hang out. We would not even talk about her. You didn't even know we dated until like maybe a year later. Yeah. So I think a year and a half or thereabout. Yeah. So I think it was. No. I keep my business separate. So. Yeah, so that made things a little bit easier. So yeah.
Well, I'm glad it was easy for you because, I think you meeting my mom was definitely easier. But yeah, it's really uncanny the way that he and my dad had they're from the same place back home too, and they both kind of have very similar lives. They both came here at the same age. They both went to Morgan. They both graduated from Morgan. Just so many very weird similarities, but I'll leave that at that. My mom is very easygoing, or at least she likes to think she is. So yeah. But Debo's mom, that was hard. That was hard for me because the first time I met her, I did not know that she was his mom. So it was and she's hardcore Nigerian, dog. So, and I had dyed my hair orange or red at this time, and I was just wearing one of my gun Metallica. I was not presented well. didn't present well on that first one. And like I didn't know who she was, so I didn't even like, oh, good morning, ma, nothing. I was just like, oh, hi, good morning, like, you know, just like hi. Oh my God, to this day, like the way that she told family members about me is that, like, oh, there was this girl, you know, she just said hi. I'm just like, no, I didn't know who she was. But like Jabo was very chill about it. And I don't know why, because I'm just like, I just disgraced myself. But like, all right, fine. Like, you know, but we've come a long way. And like, she had her apprehension about him, you know, being with an American, as she put it. But I was just like, yeah, like, you know, even if I am American, I'm like Nigerian American, first of all. But like, I'm also Christian. So I don't think that I felt like that really transcended, you know. But yeah, we've come over that. It was hard for me, like, because she's, yeah. It was hard for me. You and my dad have so much in common. Me and your mom don't have anything in common except for you. So, and he's the baby, so she's very, very protective of him. I'm the middle child. Nobody protective of me. I'm protective of myself. So like, you know, yeah, it was hard for me. But I thank God for growth and grace, because
That's funny. That's really funny. I don't know. In my instance, it was different because I grew up a pastor's son, which by nature made me political. So in the way I move and deal with people is very political. I'm very careful about how I move around, and I was not aware of people from Sierra Leone until I got to college, and then I discovered that they're kind of like, for lack of a better term, you know, you watch X-Men and they're like, mutants are all around us. Yeah, that's how Salone people are. They're everywhere. You don't know, you know what I mean? They're because they're unique, but you know they don't stand out as much as Nigerians. You see a Nigerian, you know a Nigerian. You don't have to ask anybody, you know a Nigerian.
Watch
So,
your words.
my point is that the way I move around is I move around because I'm a pastor's son. I move around like, hey, people are always watching. You got to be on your P's and Q's, because people are always looking for a way to take offense from what you do to go fight your parents or to go say something bad about the church. And because of that, when I started meeting her family, I was always very conservative, always, you know, kept myself in. But I thought I had a big family. But for Sierra Leoneans, everyone is family. I mean, I'm pastor's son. I have an entire church behind me. And yet, I don't know, somehow I would go somewhere and I would not know anyone. This is the first time in my life I can go somewhere in Maryland and only know like 2 people. And everyone knows her. And everyone has the last name or the same name. They're not related, but they're not related by blood, but they're named after the same person. And it's intense, you know what I mean? Because they also have big families in the way that I see Nigerians do in Nigeria. In America, you limit your kids. 3 kids. Salone? No. It's almost 5 kids, 6 kids. And once again, they all have the same name. You say, oh, this is Ice 2. Which Ice 2? I done met like 6 Ice 2s. Oh, it's Ice 2 Kamara. Which Ice 2 Kamara, man? I met like 4 Ice 2 Kamaras. Like, so me and her family with the younger family was a lot. You know what I mean? I've come to love people from Salone. They are very lively. They are very fun people, which makes for a great time pre-COVID. Going out, just seeing people everywhere. They, you know what I mean? They took you in as family. A lot of her family have become my very good friends now. I remember when her younger brother was in high school and we were dating, she was like, hey, like, you know, all he has are older sisters, and he was getting ready for prom. And she's like, well, you know, you dress nice, you wear suits, like, can you take him suit shopping? And I took her younger brother suit shopping for prom. And I think about that often, because I'm like, yo, in 20, 30 years we're married, you know, if he's ever talking to his wife or his kids about prom, I fit in the story with her younger brother, you know what I mean? Or I met all her siblings. All her siblings were, you know what I mean, were really close. I used to go on dates with her twin sister. We would go to the movies. I love watching movies. I always go to the movie theater by myself. Her sister works at a movie theater. Her sister would get me tickets, and after a while, her sister was like, hey, why don't we just go together? And then we used to go with Hafsa, but Hafsa always falls asleep. So then we just cut her out, and we just started going by ourselves.
Just like literally didn't even tell me sometimes. Like I'll be like, oh hey sis, where are you going? And she'll be like, oh, we're going to the movies. I'm like, wait, what? Where you going?
I mean, but that to me was cool, because once again, I've always felt like I always knew people. So being able to meet I'm adventurous. So being able to meet new people, that was so fulfilling to me. On the other hand, at the same time, the difficulties was like with her family. Like I met her parents while we were dating, and her parents never acknowledged me. They always called me a friend. Like it was actually really funny because her mom would give me like the mom eyes when the mom knows she's looking at her daughter's boyfriend. You know what I mean? She'd always use that voice, like, yeah, so how you doing? Yeah. She'd do stuff like that, but like she never actually identified me as a boyfriend, never actually took me seriously. But granted, we weren't as serious at the time, so I never, you know what I mean? I never felt any way about it. But as time went on, because she was Muslim and her family was Muslim, with her converting, there was a huge strain on the relationship. So now there's a strain between her and her parents, which for me was really awkward because now it's like, look, I only got in barely on the ground floor with her parents. Now I'm not even in the building. So it's difficult sometimes because I have my family and my family's involved in a lot of things, specifically my parents, and she doesn't have that as well. So that dynamic, even till now, especially planning a wedding, is really awkward because we're planning a wedding and we're going this halfway in with families. I mean, most of our family's there, but you know, it's not really there. So it's really difficult sometimes because I have to be conscious about, hey, man, I can't complain about my parents too much because then you look twisted, man. Like, yo, you being inconsiderate. Yeah, you look insensitive. You know what I mean? I have to be considerate of my family because I know my family can be obnoxious. My family can be a little snotty, and in that kind of situation, it's kind of tough if they're looking at her situation. You know what I mean? I got to protect her from my family pretty much. Her family isn't, her full family isn't there to protect her like they normally would a bride during a wedding. So now I have to take the mantle of trying to do that for her from my family. So it's a unique situation. It's not one I would trade for the world. You know, it is what it is, but it is what it is, yeah.
That's very noble of you, Tife. I do want to we got to keep it pushing. You know, the producers in my ear telling me we got to wrap it up, but I'm gonna keep us here because this is a very great conversation that we have going on. So, with all those things being said, you know, this is actually one of those topics that, you know, me and Christine, we faced head on even more. We always talked about it, we always thought about it, but we faced even more head on when we went through premarital counseling. So I want to talk about that a little bit. Like, how was that for you guys? What was the benefit of that? One of the things that we talk about in premarital counseling is like, who do you turn to? Who do you confide in? Who do you turn to? You know, besides a member of the Holy Trinity, of course, right? So who do you turn to? Who's your counsel? So talk about premarital counseling, and then talk about, you know, who in your life, who in your relationship you guys turn to besides each other, and besides, of course, like I said, a member of the Holy Trinity. We'll come back to the Holy Trinity a little later.
So just to touch on premarital counseling, it definitely wasn't what I expected. And not necessarily that that's a bad thing, you know, like we got into it, and they're doing it virtually now because of COVID. So it was myself, Tifa, and one other couple. And, you know, it was deep, but I do think that it was beneficial. I think that, you know, the 6 or 7 weeks that we were in it, we definitely learned how to communicate with each other better and just, you know, learn some things. You know, they had different counselors that would come in different weeks and talk about different things and try to give you perspective on how you should handle it in your marriage and stuff. And, you know, before I was like, but now I'm like, now that I'm done it, I'm like, wait, like, there's a lot of things that I refer back to. I'm like, oh, we still have like the manual. Like sometimes I go back and look at it like, oh, wait, we talked about this. Like, let me see what they would do or they would say. And it was good to have the counselors, like they were married, they had kids, like they've been in the game for a long time. So it was just good to be able to get their perspective on like a lot of things. So I think it was beneficial. In terms of who I turn to, besides, of course, my partner, I would say I have an older sister, and she's 5 years older than me. And she's the type of person to tell me the truth whether I want to hear it or not. And that's the type of person that I want to turn to if I'm ever having an issue, because I want someone who's going to be honest with me, of course. And she's always my go-to person. So, yeah.
I echo everything she says about the marriage counseling. Also, for me, for marriage counseling, once again, to bring this up as pastor's son is crazy because I've been going through marriage counseling all my life. My dad counsels people at home, you know what I mean? And my job is to get water and drinks and serve the guests, you know, and I hear all the talk, you know what I mean? You hear everything that's going on. I come to church and my dad is preaching on marriage, you know what I mean? Literally, my entire life has been prepared towards marriage. So a lot of times in our relationship, it's funny, but she says it. It's like I'm uniquely qualified to provide solutions to problems that I create because I don't know when I'm creating the problems. But then everything that I would use, the tools have already been ingrained in my head because I've heard it over and over and over and over again for 25 years. So I'm definitely prepared then. So when we talk about who to lean on, once again, it comes back to the church. I am, of my siblings, the first one to get married. So I don't just have a family who's excited for it. I have an entire church behind me. And I have an entire church of people who every Sunday pull me to the side, asking me, how's wedding planning coming? How's this going? People who are offering me both solicited and unsolicited advice. You know what I mean? People who are stepping in and they're assuming things that are going on in my life and giving me advice for the things that they assumed. You know what I mean? And sometimes it's annoying, but you gotta smile through it because you know they mean well. And other times it's actually super helpful because it's just super nice to like, yo, I looked at this guy as an uncle this whole time, uncle, but now he's like being real to me. You know what I mean? Just breaking stuff down for me. Like people were just telling me like, dog, you gotta learn how to take an L. You're gonna take many L's from your wife. That's how you make a marriage work. You know what I mean? Like, I knew that, but the reassurance is nice. So like Christine said, for Demi, you know what I mean, for me, having that community behind me now was always annoying in my past. It felt like I had a whole bunch of people looking over my shoulder. And I guess because I was younger and immature, I felt that was a negative thing. But now that I'm getting older and more mature, it gives me a great feeling, you know what I mean? It gives me a sense of support. People are behind me, you know what I mean? If I fall back, I got people to fall on. If I have answers, you know what I mean? It'd be awkward to have my parents counsel me. They're pastors. I don't want to have to deal with that, bro. Like, I talk to them as a counselor, then once the counseling session is done, they start telling me what I told them in confidentiality. Like, ain't no wall. So it's nice to have people outside of them in church who are gonna respect that wall and provide that for me.
I have a cousin who recently got married, so I typically go to her. We're close in age. She's also a new mom. And I know that typically, you know, they always say keep family and your relationship separate, but I will say that because, like, I don't know, I think just the way, again, I don't know if maybe it's just the cultural difference or not, but, like, the relationship that we have, like, she does not ever hold anything against Demi. She never throws anything back in my face. She's not counting the wrongdoings. Like, we're able to be very vulnerable and transparent with each other as it relates to relationship stuff. Now, sometimes if it's something specific to me, I'll say that, like, my best friend is very good of keeping me in check and telling me, like, you might need to recheck this, or you might want to revisit this, or try to see it from this perspective. Like, she's very good about that. So I would say those two people. And I've been fortunate enough to build a community around me as it relates to other things that I need to work through in that regard.
I think for me, it's just one person, my older brother, and he's been married for 12 years. And I mean, I've not had multiple things to go talk to him about, but if I ever need somebody, I know he's usually there.
So also like Tifa, I don't think I mentioned it. I'm also a PK. I'm PK kind of. I guess I am in the main church. And okay, well, I recently migrated back to Emerge, but when I was still mainly in the main church, yeah, every Sunday is oh, how are wedding preparations going? Oh, what's going on? Oh, this, oh, that. And like, I'm very low key. Like, people didn't know we were dating. I actually remember the day, very clearly the day that Tifa pulled me aside and was like, are you dating Devo? And I was just like, and that was like literally, it had already been like 2 years, I think. So like, I was just like, okay, if Tifa caught it, then like, yeah, I think my cover's blown. But yeah, you know, I will admit that it's very difficult for me to talk about my relationship with other people, particularly because I'm also the first one to get married in my house. I have 2 older sisters. We're like all the same age though, and they're both in very different areas of their lives. So given one topic, I could get a very different response from both of them. One of them's been with her boyfriend, only boyfriend ever for like the last 8 or like 9 or 10 years, something like that. And the other one is very free, aloof, butterfly, currently living in Tulum. So I can get very different answers from them. And because I'm very protective of Debo's image and also of my own privacy, it's hard for me to discuss certain things because I don't want them to see him in a certain light. And also as a woman, I get that it's like I have to leave a disclaimer before every conversation that, okay, disclaimer, I'm very upset right now, so the things I'm about to say, I'm not gonna mean them again in like a few days or a few hours, even hours. It could be like a few minutes, as once I get it off my chest, that's it. And I've always hated or resented the idea. I think my trust has been broken in the past too with this, in terms of confidentiality. I don't like it when people throw stuff back that I've said. I actually really hate it. So for me, I've become one of those people that just cut people off very easily. But I'm very friendly, so I'm hiring for new friends.
Hey, yo.
But yeah, I would definitely say between Christine and Hapsa here on the stage, they've definitely been there with the wedding planning, reaching out and just like literally Hapsa, you and I had we had like very small conversations, but they really meant so much to me because I literally didn't know what to do. I'm the first one to get married. None of us have been bridesmaids in my house before or maids of honor. We haven't done anything. So really, it's like I have to tell everybody what to do. And I was like, well, I don't know what to do either. But like facts, I'm the bride. I only have one job, so.
To get married.
To get married, yeah, I already got my dress. I already got my shoes. I got everything. So really, I'm done, but I'm doing everyone else's work. So, I'm definitely, I have an aunt. My aunt, I'd say, is probably my uncle's wife is probably the one that I talk to the most. I mean, I talk to my mom too, but like, yeah,
It's
a work in progress. It's a work in progress.
I feel it. All right, guys, we got 2 more questions here, and we're going to start wrapping up. So try and keep your answers a little shorter, a little sweeter. All right. So next question is, how has God played an active role in your relationship? And, how do you guys make sure to keep him in the middle of your relationship? And even dating back to before you guys, took this step to get engaged, to get married, how important was it for you? And, what steps did you take to bring that person in or keep God first while also dating? And then now that you're getting married, how do you keep God still there? Keep him first in the middle between y'all?
I mean, for us, it was a little bit easier because we're both in the same choir, same prayer conferences, all the same church events. So it was easy to keep God in the center. So even though we're always praying together for the most part, God has always been there even before we started dating. So just trying to keep all the answers short. I know we're running out of time.
Yeah, I agree with that. When I was not a praise worship leader when I met Debo. I just joined choir. Like I was fine being in the back, I was fine just like, relaxing, chilling. And I was just in a different place in my spiritual walk. But when I became a praise worship leader, I think it got a lot more intense because my own spiritual walk got a lot, like way more intense. And there was no choice but for him to be like deep with me. So like, we'll fast together, we'll pray together. It could be something as small as like when I hurt my back, he would come and encourage me. And when I would be getting very frustrated, he would reiterate our morning devotions to me. So like, you can do the little on the phone app. Sometimes his responses would be like one sentence, and I'm just like, did you read this? Did you really read this thing? But then he'll reiterate it to me to encourage me and say that, yeah, why are you worrying? Didn't we just read this morning, that X, Y, and Z? And he'll be quoting scripture to me, and I'm just like, okay, he's there. Like, we're there. And like, always, yeah. Especially as a praise worship leader, he doesn't have a choice. So all of the songs I listen to, he listens to. All the music, he'll even be sending me music. That's actually what's got us kicked off too. He was always sending me music. I'm just like, I've already listened to this. Like, but yeah, so yeah, definitely just having praise and worship in the center of what we do, and prayer has definitely been our core.
I envy what you guys are saying because, as I stated before, when we started dating, we weren't that serious as far as the future. And as a pastor's son, I don't always like bringing God into everything. My entire life, majority of my life is God, church. So when I got to school, I needed to put a wall up. Not because I didn't want God there, like, I'm still praying before my test, but having to bring God into school or things that were going on in school meant bringing church and me bringing pastor's son into that. and that's not something I really wanted to do. So when we were dating, it wasn't really like that, but it ended up having to be. Like I said, being pastor's son isn't not isn't just something familial, but it's also political. So while we were dating, there's a bunch of things that I was doing that she couldn't understand why I was doing it. So I had to explain to her, look, it's both under the religion, but both in the culture. And when we met, she was Muslim. And I was never seeking out to convert her or change her or anything like that. Once again, living and growing up in Nigeria, I had many Muslim friends. So navigating a relationship with someone who wasn't Christian, to me, was like walking or like riding a bike. You know, I mean, it was second nature for me. So knowing that I didn't want to have to tie religion into my relationship per se because we weren't there yet made it easier for me. So as time went by, she was genuinely curious about Christianity because I think I knew more about Islam than she knew about Christianity. So I did a lot of teaching her, educating stuff. She took a natural interest. By the time she converted, it was on her own volition. I never pressured her, never pushed her into anything. We had previously talked about the idea of marriage, but I did tell her, I was like, look, man, there's no way we're even moving forward in our relationship towards marriage if you're not Christian. And that's not to say that I need you to convert. I want you to convert. That's just a matter of the fact. So whatever you do with that is up to you. And we go from there. So she, you know what I mean, when she went around it, when she converted, it was nice to know that she converted on her own volition and because she wanted that relationship with God, not because she wanted marriage. Because it would really be a shame for her to convert and then we break up. And then it's like, so what now? Yeah. I mean, yeah, exactly. If you did it for the marriage, then that's what it is, and then it's a bit embarrassing and all of that. So now I think it's a little bit easier because I think my relationship with Christ had stalled because I was still dealing with my identities of being pastor's son and dealing with the church and all of that. And in teaching her about Christ and introducing her to Christ, it helped really grow my faith. Emerge has been a great home for that. Bringing her here helped her a lot. And then me having to be here, being a worker, being a leader, really helped a lot. Service really brought my relationship closer to God. And that's how we built one another. This is the time that we spent together here. So that's how we keep God. Emerge, serving together. That's a really big thing for us. And then just remembering how we got here, knowing where we started, almost agnostic pastor's son and a Muslim girl. To look where we're at right now, it's always fuel for when you're losing steam.
Pretty much everything he said. And prayer. Yeah, I don't want to drag it out. That's pretty much it.
Being that we started dating in college, I didn't grow up religious like at all. I was always around different religions. I grew up in Silver Spring, so I was like my mom's husband was Muslim. Not my dad. My dad was Christian-ish. Well, when he came here, he was Christian-ish, and then after him and my mom got divorced, he became Jehovah's Witness. And so I would say that I grew up way more spiritual than religious, and within dating Demi, I was able to really like navigate through my relationship with Christ and really ask those questions. I'm someone who asks questions about every single thing. And so, I'm very fortunate to say that like his mom has always embraced me, even knowing that I, haven't been baptized and I'm still finding my relationship with God and still strengthening that every day. She has always embraced me. She's never shamed me. I've never felt bad or like I had to make a quick decision to be accepted by her. And so that has really made me know and love God. And I think that like, honestly, like that's the work of God, right? Like literally his mom and his family are the examples of what it means to bring people closer to Christ. And with that, we've been able to keep God at the center. Although Demi is someone who's very quiet and more to himself, I've been trying to urge him to include me in prayer out loud, which is something that I'm still struggling with, and it may sound weird, but I'm working on it. But yeah, that's something like I'm constantly pushing him to say like, okay, can we pray out loud together? Can you show me different things? You read the whole Bible last year. What things were interesting for you? So yeah, I would say that those things have been what kept God at the center of our relationship.
Yeah, I think that just to kind of echo what you just said, like that's like your relationship with Christ has been one of those factors, one of those things that's strengthened my relationship with Christ. Because at the end of the day, I believe that what we're doing here, what we do, here at Emerge, what we do all as Christians is where our goal is to bring people closer to Christ, win souls for Christ. And the fact that I can say that through prayer, right? Because it wasn't my own volition. Like same thing, like with Hopsa, it wasn't something that I forced her to do. I asked her to do. I encouraged her to do. I told her like, yo, this is what it is, and this is what I would like for us. And I prayed on it, and I had my family pray on it, and ended up working out that way. So that's one of my, I would say, crowning achievements in life is that I've been able to bring you closer to Christ, and been able to win a soul for Christ, and get to say that soul that I want for Christ is my best friend. But last question, because they about to kick us out the studio. So this question is going to be both for men and women. It's a two-part question. So for the women, what advice do you have for men out there who are looking to be husbands? And then for the men, what advice do you have for the women out there that are looking to be wives? And then if you could just throw in a little bit about where you think, is the best place to look for those significant others, best place to look for those partners. This was a submitted question, so we appreciate whoever gave us that question. But yeah, good question. Opened up the floor.
I'll start. So for any woman out there who's looking for a husband, I will tell her, once again, very cliche, to focus on herself and focus on God. Build yourself. And I say this because men, we are, or like to believe ourselves to be logical and driven. Once we know what we want, we go after it. As a woman, I think it would be in your best interest to make sure you're ready for a man who comes looking for you. So know who you are, know what you want, know what you won't settle for. Once you're able to do that, it puts you in a position to immediately distinguish from the men who are serious and the men who are not. Even of the men who are serious, it helps you know which one fits better for you, which one can compromise, which one can do this, which one can do that. Because for men, we think we know everything, but in reality we don't. But we can double down and work through it anyways. You know what I mean? But if we're confronted with a woman who might not know what she wants, or she's still busy worrying about herself, or worrying about, you know what I mean? For us as men, we get worried. We're looking at her like she's selfish. She only sees herself. And that can really affect us and make us not want to commit. You know what I mean? I guess we think men generally have commitment issues. So that's why, to women, just take care of yourself and find out who you are, sort yourself out, sort out your ambitions, your plans in the future, and sort out your relationship with God. And just try to fortify that as much as possible before you allow a man to enter your life, because those plans are subject to change. But as long as, once again, you're focused on yourself and God, change won't be a bad thing, and you can handle that.
Yeah, Tiffany actually took the words out of my mouth, but I would like to add something to that. Even if you're, for the women, even if you're trying to make yourself better, you're trying to accomplish all these goals, you're still in the very short stages of your walk with God. If you find a man that is willing to help you with everything that you're working on, do not push him away. Don't wait until you're ready and then have him come back in 2 years. He might not be there. So be open to Tiffany said it. Be open to change and just keep your life centered around God.
Wow. I would honestly say a lot of the similar things. Like, for a man, like, love yourself, take care of yourself, know what you like, know what you don't like, know what you want in a woman, or know what, just know your strengths, know your weaknesses, know yourself, and keep God at the center of everything. Always pray and, all of that. But I mean, in terms of where to look, I don't really know. I feel like it could be anywhere. And I think that once you have that relationship with God and you talk to God and you pray about it, God will help you find your partner wherever they are. They can be here, they can be in Nigeria, they can be in Sierra Leone, they could be wherever. But as long as have an idea of what you're looking for and kind of just like work on yourself, but also have a relationship with God and maintain that, that woman will come.
I would say be yourself. You guys are great. I would say be yourself. I always say set attainable goals. So like, and this is gonna sound far left, but I'm gonna bring it back. I don't diet because that's not the life I want to live, right? Like I'm not gonna set myself up to say, okay, for 30 days, I'm not gonna eat bread. I'm not gonna eat fries. I love fries. They ain't never do nothing to me. Do not bring this woman flowers every day and you guys get together and you don't keep that up. Do things that you are going to keep up. Be yourself. Do not live outside of your means. Do not live outside of your means because we get attached to the things that you do. So we're going to set those expectations. And if you fall short, it brings me to my next point, which is don't sell a dream.
Yo, she's spitting.
Set intentions. Move with intentions. Communicate and make sure that, like we say, communication is easy, and it's not. 1, 2, it's comprehension. You need to make sure that when you're communicating with a woman, she is understanding the things that you want her to take from the message you're delivering. So it's not, oh, but I told you. You told her, but did she understand what you wanted her to understand? That's 2 different messages. So be yourself. Be yourself. Live within your means. Set attainable goals. Communicate with comprehension, and yeah, I think those are solid. Yeah.
Take notes, fellas.
I think my dad literally just said this the other day. He says a lot of stuff, but it's all coming back and starting to make sense now. But for the guys looking for a wife, right? You're never gonna find your wife in places that don't involve your destiny or your vision.
Say that again.
You're never going to, and that's also something Pastor said years ago, that you'll never find your purpose outside of your passion. And I do believe that the God that created us, that created Eve from Adam, created our partners for the purpose of being involved in our destiny. That's a destiny. This is a destiny helper. You feel me? So if your destiny is to be a neurosurgeon, you're not going to find your wife in a strip club. You're not going to find your wife, you're just not. You're not. Anywhere that you're trying to fulfill purpose, you will find your person there, or along the way to fulfilling that purpose. So don't go looking at it's really easy to look at what other people are doing nowadays and be like, oh, but that's how they found their man, and like, oh, maybe I'll be the exception. You're not going to be the exception. You're not. Nobody is the exception, really. All of us, we're just doing this thing called life. So as a man, especially as a man, because you're supposed to leave your parents' house and find your wife. That's another thing, guys. With these girls out here proposing to men, you're not a man. You are not a man. Wow. If your girl has to propose to you, I'm sorry. You've sold your birthright, but I'm gonna leave it at that.
We don't got enough time. We don't got enough time to get into that right now. So we're gonna let her drop the mic. I know you got something to say. Oh, okay. Yeah, we're going to drop the mic right there. We're going to let her drop the mic on that one. I do want to say, shameless plug, another place where you can find, those viable partners is right here at Emerge, 10 a.m. every Sunday.
A wedding a year.
All right. So tune in. Right. We starting that. We got our average up. We got a wedding a year, you know what I'm saying? So if you try to be next year's wedding, holla at us. All right. Numbers going up. Stats on the board. All right.
Hey, man, the 2 best places to be seen in church: if you a man, be an usher; if you a woman, be in the choir. Be visible. You know what I mean?
See. And we got wonderful people behind the cameras making us look good today. So shout out to the production team. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been the 3rd episode of the Hinge podcast series, Young, Christian, and Married. I want to thank each and every one of you for joining us, sharing your experience, giving us a glimpse into what is going on in your life, what's going on in your relationship, and also dropping some gems. I'm mad y'all waited to the end to start dropping some of those quotables, man. But it's been a pleasure being your host. Once again, my name is Demi. We'll see you guys next week. Have a good one. Peace. Peace.
Peace.